The reason your kids don't behave even though you punish them is because of this. Imagine you had a really bad toothache. What would you do? Pop a painkiller, take a swig of whiskey, ignore it, and hope it would go away on its own? Or would you make an appointment with a dentist and treat the underlying decay? It's a pretty obvious answer, right? Yet millions of parents, when they see their children misbehaving, resort to temporary solutions, leaving the core problem unaddressed. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to solve the underlying causes of your kids' misbehavior with 3 parenting strategies by telling you how our brain is like a 2-story house. So the top part of our brain is like the second floor. This is where sophisticated and complex responses such as planning, self-control, moral reasoning, and decision-making happen, and is primarily located in the prefrontal cortex. The bottom part of our brain we can think of as being like the first floor of the house, and it's completely different. This part is responsible for innate reactions and impulses like fight and flight, and for strong emotions such as anger and fear. It's primarily composed of the amygdala, which is sometimes referred to as the lizard brain. As you might expect, the brain is at its best when the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain are well integrated and work together. We can think of this integration as a staircase between the 2 floors. The downstairs brain provides essential emotions and instincts, but it needs the help of the upstairs brain for supervision and self-control. And to do these, the brain needs a staircase so they can communicate. The twist here is that in children, the staircase is still under construction, so when they feel a strong emotion, they can easily get stuck there and have a hard time returning to the reasoning part of their brain. Our job as parents then is to guide them as they build the staircase to connect with the downstairs brain. But what does this have to do with punishments? Well, let's consider this scenario. A teacher who just taught a math lesson hands out a worksheet for the class to practice what they just learned. Which strategy would help the students best? The first teacher says, okay, now that you've heard the lesson, I want you to complete this problem. If you run into any dead ends and you don't know what to do, then raise your hand and I'll help you figure it out. Or what if she said, okay, now that you've heard the lesson, I want you to complete this problem. If you get it wrong, you have to miss recess. Clearly, the first strategy would be more successful for the students. But why exactly wouldn't the second strategy work? The problem is that it was trying to motivate the students by giving them a consequence for failure, but their motivation wasn't the problem. They already wanted to succeed. After hearing what their punishment would be if they made a mistake, they got performance anxiety and a fear of failure. What happened inside their brains when they got anxious is that the fight or flight response was activated, which shut down the higher order thinking part of their brain and made it impossible for them to think straight. Giving the student extra motivation actually made him perform worse. You can have a very motivated child, yet still not get the behavior you want from them, just like how if a child doesn't know how to solve a math problem, he can't simply just solve it, no matter how much he might want to. On the other hand, the first teacher didn't pressure the students, but assured them that if they encountered any struggles,
Rather than stressing it, he could simply ask for help and it would be there right away. He didn't have to fear failure or punishments, so his fight or flight response wasn't activated and his upstairs brain stayed engaged and online. Just like punishments won't help students learn, they won't help children learn either. And that's because behaving is actually a skill that kids need to learn. They are not actually capable of controlling their impulses and emotions until we teach them how. So punishing them when they aren't able to won't help them learn how to control themselves.
so how can we teach our kids to control their emotions and impulses? I'm going to tell you 3 strategies. The first is called connect and redirect. This is useful whenever a child is upset or even when they're throwing a tantrum. It involves 2 steps. First, connecting with the child's emotions, and then redirecting their behavior. When a child is upset, by first validating and connecting with the child's feelings, parents can help calm this emotional response going on in their downstairs brain by helping them feel heard and understood. This might look like saying, I can see that you're really upset that you can't have ice cream right now. Once you've acknowledged and validated their feelings, the child is usually much more receptive to engaging their upstairs brain where problem solving and impulse control happen. Now is the time to redirect, which might involve suggesting alternatives, explaining why a certain behavior is not acceptable, or discussing the natural consequences of their action. They might say, I see that you're disappointed and upset because you want ice cream right now. But the problem is we can't have dessert before dinner because it's important to eat nutritious food first. How about we plan a scoop for after dinner instead? By using this strategy, parents can help children practice integrating their emotional responses with rational thinking. which strengthens the pathways between the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain, building the staircase between them. And after enough practice, the idea is that they'll be able to do this on their own someday. The second strategy is called name it to tame it. The idea here is that helping your child name their feelings and put them into words activates the upstairs brain, helping them to calm the downstairs brain and reduce the intensity of those feelings.
For example, if a child is angry because their sibling took their toy, a parent might help the child name this feeling by saying something like, I can see that you're feeling really angry right now because your brother took your toy without asking.
What you'll find is that when a child's emotions are named, they'll feel heard and validated, and they'll be much more open to figuring out a solution, and then you can start to talk things out with the siblings. Naming the emotion can also lead to a conversation about why the child is feeling that way and what they might do differently in the future. In this way, name entertainment not only helps children in the moment, but also equips them with tools to better manage their emotions in the future. The third strategy is called engage, don't enrage. This approach is about involving your child in the decision-making processes and problem solving rather than simply dictating rules and consequences. The goal is to engage their upstairs brain instead of provoking a downstairs brain reaction. For example, rather than saying, you will clean your room every Saturday morning, which might provoke resistance or an emotional reaction, you could engage your child in the decision by saying, your room needs to be clean enough that people won't trip on toys or step on Legos. What can we do to make sure that doesn't happen? In the same way, if your child is having difficulty with homework, rather than simply telling them to finish it or else they'll get a consequence, you could engage them by asking, what do you think is making this homework difficult for you? Where can we go to figure out how to solve it? By involving children in the problem-solving process, you're helping them to build the staircase and practice shifting from their downstairs brain to their upstairs brain. This approach also helps children feel more ownership over the solutions, which can increase their motivation to follow through than if you had just given them orders. But there's a big problem. Doesn't the Bible tell us that we should punish our children? Well, I made a video on just that, so make sure to watch that next to learn what the Bible really has to say about spanking children.